At 9:47 on a rain-soaked Thursday evening in late October, Derek Sutton opened his apartment door and found the impossible standing on his doorstep. Catherine Aldridge wasn't wearing the tailored charcoal suit that made board members sit straighter or the designer scarf that cost more than Derek's monthly rent. Just a drenched coat hanging off her shoulders, mascara tracking dark rivers down pale cheeks, hair loose and wild in a way he'd never seen during 3.5 years of working under her command. She held a manila envelope against her chest like a shield or maybe a white flag. The CEO of Morrison Steel, $420 million in annual revenue, 890 employees. The woman who'd inherited her grandfather's empire at 30 and transformed it into something fiercer was shaking. Derek's hand stayed frozen on the doorknob. His brain scrambled to process the disconnect between the woman who commanded boardrooms like battlefields and this rain-soaked figure who looked like she'd been wandering streets for hours. Her voice came out raw, stripped of executive polish. "I accepted your resignation, but I can't accept losing you." The words hit Derek's chest like a physical blow. 5 days since he'd walked into her corner office with a resignation letter. 5 days of silence so complete he'd convinced himself she'd already moved on. Already replaced him in her mental org chart with someone less broken. Behind him, the apartment felt suddenly smaller. The second-hand couch he'd bought after his wife died. The coffee table stacked with motorcycle magazines he hadn't had time to read in months. The pizza box on the counter, first real food he'd eaten in weeks that wasn't a protein bar consumed at his desk. This was his life now, small and quiet and his own. And Catherine Aldridge, who'd never visited an employee's home in her 8 years running Morrison Steel, was standing in the hallway looking at him like he held something she desperately needed. From the bedroom came a small voice. "Daddy, who's at the door?" Jada appeared in pajamas decorated with planets and stars, her hair in 2 puffs that had gone slightly lopsided during sleep. 8 years old, with her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn chin. She rubbed sleep from her face, taking in the scene with the uncanny perception children had when adults were pretending everything was fine. "Is she okay?" Jada stepped closer, no fear in her approach. "The lady looks sad." Catherine's eyes widened. Her gaze darted from Jada to Derek, and something in her expression cracked completely. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Mr. Sutton, Derek, I didn't know you had a daughter. I'm so sorry." "The hours I made you work." Jada walked right up to Catherine, tilting her head back to study the tall white woman who was dripping water onto their doormat. "Daddy says when people are sad, you should help them. Are you sad?" "Yes, sweetheart, I am." "Then Daddy will help you. He's good at helping people." Jada said it with the absolute certainty of a child who'd never seen her father turn away someone in need. Derek found his voice. "Baby girl, go back to bed. I'll be there in a minute to tuck you in." Jada looked between them, some calculation happening behind those 2 perceptive eyes. "Okay. But don't forget the part about the dragon." She padded back to her room, glancing over her shoulder once before disappearing. Derek stepped aside. "Come inside. You're soaking wet." Catherine hesitated, water dripping from her coat onto the worn carpet. "If I come inside, I might lose my nerve. Then lose it where it's dry." She crossed the threshold. Derek handed her a towel, threadbare but clean, and disappeared into his bedroom. He emerged with an old Georgetown hoodie and sweatpants that would be comically oversized on her frame. Catherine took them without a word and vanished into his bathroom. While she changed, Derek checked on Jada. His daughter was in bed covers, pulled up to her chin, watching him with eyes that saw too much. "Is she your boss?" "She was. I don't work there anymore, remember? Is she nice?" Derek sat on the edge of Jada's bed, smoothing her hair. "Yeah, baby, she's nice." "Then why does she look so sad?" How did you explain to an 8-year-old that sometimes kindness and sadness lived in the same person, that you could care about someone and still hurt them through circumstances neither of you fully controlled? Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and then they feel sad about it. Jada considered this with her characteristic seriousness. Did you make a mistake? Maybe. I don't know yet. Well, you should help her anyway. That's what Mommy would say. The mention of Sarah dead 3 years now from cancer that had ravaged her, before Jada was old enough to remember her, clearly landed like it always did. A reminder that Derek was doing this alone, making choices that would shape his daughter's understanding of the world. You're right. That is what Mommy would say. He kissed Jada's forehead. Now sleep, and tomorrow we'll finish that dragon story. When Derek returned to the living room, Catherine stood by his window in his clothes, hair, damp makeup washed away. She looked young and uncertain and so unlike the CEO who'd commanded his last 3 years that Derek felt his carefully constructed walls beginning to crack. They sat on opposite ends of his couch, the manila envelope between them. I created a position for you. Catherine's fingers worried at the envelope's edge. Director of Employee Wellness, job description, salary, benefits, it's all in here. Remote work, flexible hours. Leading a company-wide initiative to prevent what happened to you from happening to anyone else. She looked at him, then really looked at him, and Derek saw something in her eyes he'd never seen before. Catherine Aldridge, terrified and unguarded and completely human. But that's not why I'm here. The silence stretched. Outside, rain hammered against windows. Inside, Derek could hear his own heartbeat. I've spent 5 days pretending I'm fine. Catherine continued, voice barely above a whisper. Telling myself that losing you is just business, that I can move on like I move on from everything, and I can't. She set down the envelope with shaking hands. I don't want to be your boss anymore. I want... She stopped, laughed bitterly. I'm good at boardrooms and negotiations and strategic planning. I'm terrible at this. At what? At telling you that you matter to me, not as an employee, as a person, as... She pressed her lips together, visibly fighting for composure. I'm in love with you, Derek. I have been for months, maybe longer. And I couldn't say anything while you worked for me. Couldn't cross that line. The world tilted. Derek forgot how to breathe. But you don't work for me anymore. So I'm here in the rain, humiliating myself because the thought of you walking out of my life forever is worse than any rejection you could possibly give me. Derek's voice came out hoarse. I've been in love with you since my first month at Morrison Steel. Catherine's sharp intake of breath was audible over the rain. What? Every late-night call felt like stealing something I wasn't allowed to have. I spent Saturday mornings in your garage pretending I was working on a motorcycle when really I was desperate to be near you. His throat closed. Part of why I resigned, staying near you without being able to have you, was killing me. I was burning out from the merger, yes, but I was also breaking from wanting something I thought was impossible. Catherine moved. Suddenly she was right there, close enough that Derek could smell rain and expensive perfume and possibility. Her hands came up to frame his face, thumbs brushing his cheekbones. Say something, she whispered. Derek pulled her to him. Their lips met, and 18 months of wanting compressed into a single moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard. Catherine's eyes were wet, but her smile was real. I need you to understand something, Derek said, not letting her go. I meant what I wrote in that resignation letter. I was disappearing. The merger was consuming me. I can't be what you need if I don't figure out who I am first. I'm not asking you to be anything except yourself. That's the point. Catherine's fingers traced the line of his jaw. I fell in love with Derek Sutton, the man who lights up talking about vintage motorcycles, who listened when I told you about wanting to be an architect. I don't want to lose that person. I'm terrified this is another thing I'll fail at. Then we'll fail together. She kissed him again, softer this time. But I don't think we will. Derek asked her to stay. Not sexually, just stay. Exist in the same space without it being about work or crisis or anything except being together. Catherine said yes. They talked until dawn, sprawled on his couch with blankets Jada had helped pick out from Target. Catherine told him about her grandfather's expectations about inheriting a company at 30 and feeling like she was playing a role written for someone else. Derek told her about Sarah's death, about single fatherhood, about the novel he'd abandoned when work consumed every waking hour. Around 6 a.m., exhaustion finally caught them. Catherine fell asleep with her head on Derek's chest. He stayed awake, watching her breathe, understanding that tomorrow would bring questions and complications and the hard work of building something real. But tonight, this morning, he was exactly where he needed to be. The smell of pancakes woke him. Derek opened his eyes to find Catherine gone from the couch. Voices drifted from the kitchen, one adult, one child, both female. He found them at his stove. Jada stood on a chair teaching Catherine how to flip pancakes, providing running commentary in the way 8-year-olds did when they'd found a receptive audience. "You have to wait for the bubbles, see, that's how you know it's ready. Daddy taught me that." Catherine held the spatula like it might bite her. "You're very good at this. Daddy says cooking is important. Mommy couldn't cook, she was always working." Jada said it matter-of-factly, the way children spoke about dead parents when the grief had become part of their landscape rather than an acute wound. "Then she got sick and couldn't do anything." Catherine's hand stilled on the spatula. Her eyes found Derek's in the doorway, and he saw the realization land. She'd been walking the same path Sarah had walked. Work consuming everything until nothing else remained. "I'm sorry," Catherine said quietly. "I didn't mean to. It's okay." Derek crossed to the stove. "Jada, go wash your hands. Breakfast in 5 minutes." When Jada disappeared into the bathroom, Catherine turned to face him. "I made her remember. She remembers every day. That's not your fault." Derek touched her arm. "But it's good that you heard it. Good that you understand what happens when work becomes everything." They ate pancakes together, slightly burnt, but edible. And Derek watched his daughter charm Catherine with stories about 3rd grade and her best friend Marcus, who could do a backflip, and her teacher Mrs. Rodriguez, who had a parrot that knew 50 words. Catherine listened with genuine interest, asking questions that made Jada's eyes light up. After breakfast, after Catherine had left with promises to talk soon and figure out what came next, Jada helped Derek clear plates. "I like her," Jada announced. "She's nice. And she looks at you the way Daddy Jack looks at Daddy Tony in the pictures Grandma shows me." Derek nearly dropped the plate he was holding. "What? Like she really sees you?" Jada shrugged, unbothered by the magnitude of her observation. "Are you going to see her again?" "Maybe. Would that be okay with you?" Jada considered this with the seriousness she brought to all important questions. "Is she going to make you work too much again?" The question landed like a punch. Of course, Jada had noticed. Children always noticed. "No, baby, that's not going to happen anymore." "Okay then. But you have to bring her back so I can teach her to make pancakes that don't burn." The weeks that followed developed their own rhythm. Saturday mornings remained sacred, but the context had shifted. Derek still arrived at Catherine's garage at 10 with 2 coffees, still spent hours with his hands buried in the Triumph's engine. But now Catherine would lean against the workbench, watching him with open affection, would hand him tools and let their fingers linger, would laugh without the professional filter that used to keep them safely separated. One Saturday in early November, Derek looked up from the carburetor to find Catherine sketching. She'd pulled out a pad from somewhere, pencil moving across paper with focused intensity. "What are you drawing?" She hesitated, then turned the pad around. A building took shape in careful lines, community center, with walls that curved to embrace rather than contain windows, positioned to pull morning light into gathering spaces. "Show me more." Catherine flipped through pages. Each one held architectural dreams, libraries with reading nooks, houses that seemed to grow from the ground. Spaces designed for humans rather than aesthetics. "You should take classes." Her face closed. "I run a $420 million company. I don't have time." "You found time for me." The words hung between them. Catherine set down the sketch pad, staring at her hands like they held answers she wasn't ready to confront. Maybe I need to stop using the company as an excuse for not doing things that scare me. Derek crossed to her, pulled her close, felt her resistance melt into his chest. What if we made a deal? You practice letting go of control. I practice taking creative risks. We hold each other accountable. What kind of risks? I'll finish my novel. You take that architecture class you keep not signing up for. Catherine looked up at him. What if I fail? Then you'll fail and survive it. Derek's hands framed her face. Better to try and fail than spend your whole life wondering. By mid-November, they'd established boundaries without discussion. No work talk after 8 p.m. Dedicated date nights, Wednesday and Saturday. Permission to ask for alone time without it being rejection. The framework of what they were building erected one careful conversation at a time. Physical intimacy arrived on a Friday evening in early December. They'd been watching a movie at his apartment, something forgettable that neither cared about when the space between them on the couch became unbearable. Derek kissed her and she kissed back, and somehow they ended up in his bedroom with the lights off and uncertainty replaced by want. Afterward, Catherine lay with her head on Derek's chest. Her fingers traced patterns on his skin. I'm not good at this. You're doing fine. I mean relationships, being vulnerable. Her voice carried edges he hadn't heard before. I'm going to mess this up. Pull away when you need me close, work too much. All the things that destroyed every other relationship. Then we'll fix it when it happens. Derek's hand moved through her hair, steady and sure. Together. The first test came 2 weeks later. Catherine canceled their Wednesday dinner for an emergency board meeting. Tri-state integration had hit snag suppliers, missing deadlines, costs creeping past projections. She texted Derek at 7:15 with an apology that felt too corporate. Derek spent the evening alone, Jada already asleep, staring at his phone and feeling echoes of Sarah's complaints about being perpetually second place. He waited until 10 to text back. I know work happens, but I need to know we're not falling into old patterns. 20 minutes later. You're right, I'm sorry. This won't become a habit. I promise to protect our time better. The next day, she showed up at noon with Flowers' grocery store carnations that were slightly wilted, and an apology that lived in her eyes more than her words. Can we talk? They sat at his kitchen table, Catherine's hands wrapped around a coffee mug she didn't touch. I panicked yesterday. The board meeting could have waited, but I defaulted to old patterns, putting work first, not protecting what matters. Her fingers tightened on the mug. I don't know how to balance you and the company without sacrificing one for the other. I'm not asking you to stop being CEO, but I'm asking myself if I can be CEO and partner simultaneously without destroying both. Derek reached across the table, covered her hands with his. We'll figure it out, but we have to communicate when things feel wrong. I'm not good at communicating feelings. Then practice. Start with right now. Catherine's throat worked. Terrified, grateful, overwhelmed, like I'm standing at the edge of something that could be extraordinary or catastrophic. That sounds about right, she laughed. Derek squeezed her hands. Next Wednesday, 6 p.m., no board meetings, just us. They kept the deal, and the next Wednesday, and the one after that. Early January brought the drive to Vincent Sutton's house 3 hours north through Virginia into southern Ohio winter fields. Bare and waiting. Derek's hands gripped the steering wheel tight enough to hurt while Catherine's hand rested steady on his thigh. He'd called ahead with a stilted conversation where he'd mentioned seeing someone. Vincent had responded with careful enthusiasm that sounded practiced. Now, pulling into the gravel driveway, that enthusiasm felt like a trap waiting to spring. Vincent met them at the door, 68 years old with shoulders that remembered carrying steel. His hug lasted longer than necessary. When he pulled back, his eyes held worry. You look better. When you quit, I thought you look better now. They settled in the living room with beers. Vincent's eyes tracked between them, calculating, measuring. So, you finding work? Not yet, taking time to figure out what I want. What you want. The words came out flat-weighted with generational judgment. Must be nice. Derek felt Catherine stiffen. He squeezed her knee under the table, warning or reassurance or both. I'm seeing someone. It's serious. Vincent's face shifted towards something softer. That's good, son. After Sarah, what's her name? The moment stretched. Catherine. She runs Morrison Steel. The temperature dropped. Vincent set his beer down with careful precision. His eyes went to Catherine, then back to Derek. Your boss. Former boss. I don't work there anymore. Is that why you quit? No, I quit because I was burning out. The relationship happened after. Vincent stood, crossed to the window overlooking his workshop. When he spoke, his voice carried decades of watching people like him get used up. 35 years I worked for people like her. People who owned the factory where I sweated and bled. You know what I learned? Derek's throat closed. He knew where this was going. They don't see us as human. We're tools, resources to be used up and thrown away. Vincent turned. His eyes found Catherine accusation sharp enough to cut. Your mother, when she got sick, you remember, Derek? You were 15. How much time did my boss give me? 2 days. 2 days to watch my wife die because production schedules don't stop for grief. Derek remembered. His father's hollow face coming home from the factory the day after the funeral. And now you're dating one of them. The CEO who worked you until you collapsed, who took everything and let you walk away when you had nothing left. Dad. Your grandfather trusted his boss, too. Man promised promotion if he worked harder. Your grandfather died at 52 with nothing but broken back and broken promises. Vincent's voice climbed. You think this is different because she's pretty, because she says nice things? She's rich and powerful and you're not. Those relationships always end with people like us getting hurt. Derek stood. Catherine's hand found his. You don't know her. Don't know anything about what we have. I know she's from a world that eats people like us for breakfast. The crude reduction landed like a slap. Catherine flinched. She loves me. Vincent's laugh was bitter. She thinks she does, but wait until someone from her world comes along, someone who fits. Derek grabbed his jacket. I came hoping you'd be happy for me. Your grandfather made his own choices too. They killed him. I don't want that for you. Derek paused at the door. Mom wouldn't have wanted you this bitter. Your mother never met Catherine Aldridge. The drive back took 4 hours of silence. Derek white-knuckled the wheel while Catherine stared at winter landscape blurring past. Neither spoke until they hit Virginia. I'm sorry. Don't be. Catherine's voice came quiet. He's protecting you. Everything he said about power imbalances, that's not unfair. That's pattern recognition. You're not like that. Aren't I? I worked you 95 hours a week, let you burn out chasing my merger. Her hand found his on the gear shift. Your father's not wrong about what I did, he's just wrong about my intentions. The question is whether I can be different going forward. They drove the rest of the way processing that truth. March arrived with Derek's bank account hitting 4 figures in panic, whispering. 5 months unemployed. He opened job search sites at 2 a.m. scrolling through positions that looked exactly like the trap he'd escaped. Catherine found him Wednesday evening with his laptop open. Her face went carefully neutral. You're looking for work. Just browsing. My offer still stands. Derek closed the laptop harder than necessary. I need to see what else is out there. The word convenient almost escaped his lips, but he swallowed it. Catherine's voice flattened into CEO mode. What do you need from me? The question caught him off guard. Not defensive, not controlling, just asking. I need to know I'm choosing your position because I want it, not because it's easy, not because of us. Catherine paced to his window. When she turned back, her jaw was set, but her eyes held understanding. Then look. Interview. See what's out there. She crossed back to him. But know this, I created that position because Morrison Steel needs it. Whether you take it or someone else does the work matters. I just happen to hope it's you. Over the next 3 weeks, Derek interviewed at 3 companies. Each felt wrong, same expectations, same culture, same burnout waiting to happen. Late March, he called Catherine on a Sunday afternoon. "I want to take the position." Silence. Then careful. "Are you sure this isn't because of us?" "It's partly because of us, but mostly because I believe in the work. If I take this job, I'm taking it because the company needs it, which means I'll push back when policies are wrong, challenge culture even when it's uncomfortable." "I'm counting on it." Catherine's voice softened. "I need that. Morrison Steel needs that. I'll need until May to start, 2 more months to finish recovering. Take whatever time you need. Thank you for choosing this, for choosing us." April brought Derek's solo motorcycle trip, 5 days threading through Blue Ridge back roads. Catherine had watched him pack with an expression she tried to hide, but Derek knew fear when it wore her face. They'd booked Vermont for the day after his return, concrete plans meant to anchor him to coming back. He called every evening. On the 3rd night, something cracked. "I've called my therapist twice this week." Catherine's admission came quiet. "Keep having moments where I'm convinced you're not coming back. What do you do when you have those moments? Go to your garage, sit with your tools, remind myself you left them because you're coming back." They talked another hour. When Derek hung up, he understood something fundamental. Freedom wasn't about running from anything. It was about choosing what to run toward. Friday evening, he rolled into Richmond as sun painted the sky amber. Catherine waited outside his apartment with wine and a smile that said she'd been counting hours. Inside, Jada launched herself at Derek. "You're back. Did you see any bears? Did the motorcycle go really fast? Can we have pancakes for dinner?" Derek caught her mid-leap, spinning her around while Catherine watched with an expression that made his chest tight. "No bears, yes fast, and absolutely pancakes." While Derek cooked, Jada regaled them with everything that had happened in 5 days. A detailed account of 3rd-grade drama that Catherine listened to with genuine interest. Later, after Jada was asleep, Catherine helped Derek clean up. "She's amazing," Catherine said, drying a plate. "You've done such a good job with her." "Most days I'm just winging it. That's what makes you good at it. You show up, you listen, you let her be herself." Catherine set down the towel. "I never thought I wanted kids. Always too busy, too focused on the company, but watching you with her—" She stopped herself. Derek turned to face her fully. "What? I think I was just scared. That I'd be like my parents, that work would consume me and I'd damage a child the way I was damaged." Her eyes held his. "But you showed me that's a choice, not an inevitability." The words hung between them, pregnant with possibility neither was quite ready to name yet. They drove to Vermont the next morning. The bed and breakfast was exactly as Catherine had researched, restored farmhouse, with mountain views and a full itinerary of architectural tours. They spent Saturday wandering through buildings that proved beauty and function could coexist, watching Catherine's face light up, discussing load-bearing walls and natural light. Sunday morning, packing the car for the drive home, Derek reached into Catherine's glove compartment, searching for sunglasses. His hand brushed paper. A manila folder slid out, spilling contents across the passenger seat. The label read, "Derek Sutton, Contingency Plans," in Catherine's precise handwriting. Inside were job descriptions, salary scenarios, organizational charts with his name in boxes marked, "Create if necessary." Handwritten notes in margins, "Wellness Director position. Develop framework for retention. Monitor burnout indicators Q2, Q3. Intervene before resignation becomes viable option." The date at the top said March 2024, 1 month before that late-night phone call when Catherine had asked if he was okay. Derek's hands went numb. Everything recontextualized itself, every late-night call, every Saturday morning, every moment he'd thought was spontaneous affection. Catherine emerged carrying their bags. Her smile died when she saw his face. "What's wrong?" Derek held up the folder. Color drained from her skin. "You planned this." His voice came out flat. "Before we even got close, you were already strategizing how to keep me from leaving." Catherine's hands reached for the folder like she could somehow take back what Derek had already seen. The bed and breakfast owner glanced out a window, probably sensing the shift in atmosphere, and disappeared back inside with discretion cultivated from years of witnessing other people's dramas. It wasn't manipulation. I was preparing contingencies in case you left professionally. Did you engineer that phone call? Derek's voice stayed level through sheer force of will. The one in April where you asked if I was okay, was that calculated? No, that was real, but I'd been noticing you burning out for weeks, and when you mentioned Sarah, I saw an opening too. The truth landed with mathematical inevitability. Derek felt something cold settle in his chest where warmth had lived moments before. To what? Get closer so you could keep your best employee so the merger wouldn't collapse. It wasn't about that. I cared about you. But you also needed me. Derek's hands shook, holding evidence of planning that predated everything he'd thought was organic between them. For the merger, for the company, and you couldn't separate caring from strategic asset management. Catherine's tears started. She swiped at them, angry, frustrated, caught. You're twisting this. Yes, I had contingency plans because you were valuable, but everything personal was real. Was it, or was I a resource you were managing? Derek heard his voice climb despite efforts to stay controlled. Another problem you solved with 20 steps of strategic planning. That's not fair. You told me once to be practical, to think strategically. Isn't that exactly what you were doing? Catherine sat on the car's hood. The folder remained in Derek's hands like evidence at a trial neither wanted. I thought you loved me despite my position. Turns out you loved me because of it. Because I was useful. That's not true. I love you, Derek Sutton, who fixes motorcycles and writes novels and sees me as human. Then why did you create files on retaining me before we were even together? Derek threw the folder into the car. Why did you plan this like a business acquisition? The silence stretched. A car passed on the country road, occupants probably wondering about the drama unfolding in this postcard-perfect morning. I need space. Derek's throat closed. I can't do this right now. He got in the car, started the engine. Catherine remained on the hood until he put it in reverse, then moved aside with mechanical precision. Derek made it to the highway before the shaking started. He pulled into a rest stop and sat gripping the steering wheel while his phone buzzed with texts he couldn't read yet. When he finally looked, there were 7 messages. Please talk to me, I'm sorry. It wasn't what you think. I love you. Please don't shut me out. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. Please. Derek turned off his phone. 3 days passed in his apartment with work emails from Morrison Steel piling up. His start date was 2 weeks away, and Catherine's texts mounting into the dozens. Jada noticed immediately that something was wrong. Is Catherine okay? She asked over breakfast Tuesday morning. We had a disagreement. Are you still going to see her? I don't know, baby. Jada set down her spoon with the seriousness that meant she was about to say something she'd been thinking about for a while. When me and Marcus fight at school, Mrs. Rodriguez makes us talk about our feelings. She says feelings that stay inside get bigger and meaner. This is different. Why? Because you're grown-ups. Jada's eyes held that too perceptive quality that made Derek wonder how much 8-year-olds really understood. Grown-ups have feelings too. Mommy told me that before she died. She said Daddy has big feelings, but sometimes he keeps them locked up. The mention of Sarah hit like it always did, a reminder that his late wife had seen him clearly, had known his patterns, had tried to teach their daughter to help him break them. You're right. I do need to talk to her. Good, because I like Catherine, and she makes you smile the way you smile in the pictures with Mommy. Tuesday evening, Wes showed up unannounced with Chinese takeout and the expression of someone prepared for intervention. Derek let him in because turning away your best friend was harder than facing whatever truth he'd driven across town to deliver. They ate in silence until Wes set down his lo mein and fixed Derek with a look. You going to tell me what happened? Derek showed him the folder. Wes read through methodically, whistling low. That's calculated. She had me pegged as a retention risk before we even got close. Wes set down the folder. His fingers drummed the table, the tell that meant he was choosing words carefully. You asking if she played you? I'm asking if I was an idiot for thinking any of it was real. Wes leaned back. Outside Richmond's evening traffic provided soundtrack to a conversation neither wanted. I've seen her with you. At my place. The way she looked at you, that wasn't CEO evaluating assets. That was woman in love, scared shitless she'd lose you. He paused. But I also get why this hurts. She saw you as employee first person second, made plans before she made room in her heart. Question is, can you forgive her for that? Derek stared at the folder, at evidence of Catherine's need to control outcomes, manage variables, prepare for every eventuality. But also her tears when he'd left for his solo trip had been real. Her vulnerability about therapy was real. The way she'd listened to Jada's third-grade stories, that had been real too. I don't know. Then figure it out, because that woman drove 4 hours in rain to tell you she loved you, and you don't do that for strategic assets. Wednesday evening, Derek drove to Catherine's house without calling first. She answered looking like she'd spent 3 days not sleeping, hair unwashed, eyes red, wearing his Georgetown hoodie. Derek, I need to say something first. He stepped inside. Catherine's house was immaculate in that way spaces got when grief needed channeling into controllable tasks. You're right. I saw those plans and assumed the worst, but here's what I realized. Derek's voice steadied as he found the words. I've been doing the same thing. I categorized you as CEO first person second, assumed everything you did was strategic because that's what CEOs do. I didn't give you credit for being complex enough to love me and be good at your job simultaneously. Catherine's eyes filled. She didn't move, like moving might shatter whatever fragile thing Derek was offering. I should have told you about the folder. Yes. Derek closed the distance. But I should have trusted that you're capable of containing multitudes. That planning professionally and loving genuinely aren't mutually exclusive. I'm sorry. The words broke on her lips. I didn't know how to separate caring from controlling. I just loved you and needed you and couldn't parse which impulse drove which action. Derek pulled her close. She collapsed against him, shaking with crying that came from deep places rarely accessed. I'm still hurt. Need time to rebuild trust, but I love you. And I believe what we have is real. Catherine pulled back enough to see his face. I'll do whatever it takes. Therapy, transparency, anything. Start with burning that folder. Catherine went to her fireplace. Lit it with shaking hands. Fed the folder page by page into flames that consumed months of strategic planning. Derek watched evidence turn to ash. I choose you. Catherine turned from dying flames. Not the operations director, not the asset, you. They made love on her living room floor with the fireplace crackling. Afterward, they lay tangled in blankets watching embers fade. I start back at Morrison Steel next week. Catherine's hand stilled on his chest. You still want to? I want to. The work matters. But I need you to understand something. If I take this job, I'm doing it because the company needs it. Which means I'll push back when policies are wrong. Be the employee who cares more about people than quarterly targets. I'm counting on it. Monday morning, Derek arrived at Morrison Steel at 7:14. His office sat on the 3rd floor with a window overlooking the factory floor. Someone had left a potted plant, a peace lily, slightly wilted but salvageable. The note read, "Make them uncomfortable. That's the job." C. Derek spent his first hour reviewing employee data. The numbers painted a picture he'd lived but never seen from outside Morrison Steel, systematically consuming people, grinding them down, replacing them rather than fixing systems. His first initiative rolled out Wednesday: mandatory time off with hard stops on email after 7 p.m. Restructured performance metrics rewarding sustainable productivity. Mental health days that didn't count against sick leave. Resistance came immediately. And Nathaniel Morrison, Catherine's uncle, board member, defender of old guard, began undermining Derek quietly. By June, Nathaniel's campaign had escalated. Budget meetings where he questioned every line item. Hallway conversations that stopped when Derek approached. The whisper network suggesting nepotism and conflicts of interest. The leak hit Wednesday morning in early June. Richmond Business Journal ran a story about Morrison Steel's CEO being in a relationship with an employee she'd personally hired. The article stopped carefully short of accusations but let implications hang heavy. Stock dropped 3% before lunch. Derek's phone lit up at 11:47. "My office now." The executive floor carried tension thick enough to taste. Nathaniel's face filled the main screen in the conference room, wearing satisfaction poorly disguised as concern. Catherine stood at her window. She didn't turn when Derek entered. "Nathaniel leaked it." "What do we do?" Catherine's shoulders were rigid. "We have options. You resign temporarily, I recuse myself from oversight, or we go public with the timeline." "None of those feel right." "Then what?" Catherine turned. Her eyes held CEO calculation. "The board meets tomorrow. I need strategy." "The strategy is truth. We dated after I resigned. We maintain boundaries. The programs work." "Nathaniel doesn't care about data." Catherine's control began fraying. "He wants you gone and me embarrassed. This is about power. So we fight, by hoping honesty wins." Her laugh came bitter. "I've been CEO 8 years. Honesty is a tool, Derek, not a strategy." The words landed wrong. Derek felt something cold settle. "You want me to resign. I want to protect us, by throwing me under the bus." Catherine's hands fisted. "You knew this would be complicated. I knew it would be hard. I didn't know you'd fold the first time we got pushback. Fold, I'm trying to save your career. I don't care about my career, I care about doing work that matters." The volume climbed. Assistants outside definitely heard. "I'm asking you to be practical." "No." Derek grabbed his jacket. "You're asking me to let you control this because uncertainty terrifies you. This is exactly what you do, Catherine. When things get messy, you try to impose order by controlling everything around you, including me. Don't make this about my control issues." "It is about your control issues. You created a position partly because you couldn't stand me leaving. Now you want me to leave anyway because staying is harder than you thought." Catherine's face went pale. She turned to the window, hands braced against the sill. "Then I'll recuse myself completely. We become purely professional. No acknowledgement of the relationship. No personal contact during business hours." "That sounds like punishment." "It sounds like the only way to protect both our positions." The silence felt like glass breaking. "Maybe we rushed this." Catherine's words came quiet, precise. "Maybe we weren't ready for this level of complexity." Derek's hand froze on the doorknob. "You don't mean that." "I don't know what I mean. I just know I can't think straight when you're fighting me." "I'm not fighting you. I'm fighting for us." "Well, maybe I need you to stop fighting and let me do what I'm good at." Derek opened the door, stepped through, paused. "I think we both need space." He left before Catherine could respond, made it to the elevator before his hands started shaking. That evening at 8:47, his phone rang. Not Catherine, Vincent's neighbor. "Derek, your father collapsed at the factory, Columbus General. You need to come now." The drive took 3 hours that felt like 3 years. Derek called Catherine twice, both went to voicemail. He left a message the second time. "Vincent's in the hospital. Heart attack. I'm driving to Columbus. I don't know what we are right now, but I thought you should know." Columbus General's ICU hummed with machines. Vincent lay in a bed connected to displays tracking heartbeat and oxygen and the border between here and gone. "Heart attack. Massive." The doctor was young, efficient kind. "We've stabilized him, but the next 24 hours are critical." Derek sat beside his father's bed while machines beeped. Around 2 a.m. Thursday morning, Vincent's eyes opened. "Son." "I'm here, Dad. I was wrong." Vincent's hand moved weakly. "About her. About you." Derek's throat closed. He took his father's hand. "Don't. Save your strength. Need to say this. While I can." Vincent's breath came labored. "I was so angry at my bosses, at your grandfather's bosses, Angry they worked him to death. I put all that anger on Catherine, but she's not them. The machines beeped steadier. Your mother talked to me before she died, said I was letting bitterness poison me, that I needed to let you live your own life. He coughed. She was right. I've been so scared of you getting hurt the way grandfather did. But you're not me, and Catherine isn't my boss. Dad, the way you talked about her at Christmas, that's how I talked about your mother. That's love, son. Real love. Real. I was too bitter to see it. Derek was crying now. You weren't wrong to worry. I did burn out. But you saved yourself. Vincent's grip tightened fractionally. That takes courage. And she's helping you build a life that works. That's partnership. He pulled Derek closer. Bring her in. I want to apologize while I can. Derek called Catherine. She answered on the first ring. Vincent's asking for you. I'm coming. Catherine made the 4-hour drive in 3.5. She arrived at dawn Thursday looking like she'd thrown on whatever clothes were closest. Derek had never loved her more than watching her walk into that ICU room with fear written across every feature but coming anyway. Vincent's eyes tracked her approach. I said terrible things about you. Called you an exploiter. Catherine moved to the bedside. You were protecting him. I was protecting my fear, my bitterness. Vincent paused for breath. But I see now. The way you drove here without hesitation. She loves you. Real love. The kind worth fighting for. Catherine's eyes filled. She looked at Derek, then back to Vincent. Thank you. That means more than you know. Vincent's hand found Derek's. Don't wait. If you love her, really love her, don't wait like I did. Build something good while you can. By Thursday afternoon, Vincent had stabilized enough that doctors were cautiously optimistic. Derek and Catherine sat in the hospital cafeteria drinking terrible coffee. You should stay with your father. The board meeting, I'll handle it. Catherine's hand covered his. Your father needs you. Derek looked at her, at the woman who'd driven through the night because he called. We handle it together. That's what partners do. But Vincent's recovery meant staying through Thursday. The board meeting had been scheduled for Thursday morning. Derek called Grace Winters and explained. Grace rescheduled for Friday morning, giving Derek and Catherine time. They spent Thursday at the hospital. Jada came up with Wes after school. Derek had called him from the road to arrange childcare. She burst into Vincent's room with the energy 8-year-olds brought to everything. Grandpa, you scared Daddy. Vincent managed a weak smile. Sorry, Peanut. Jada climbed carefully onto the bed. You have to get better. We're supposed to finish building that birdhouse. We will. Jada turned to Catherine. Are you and Daddy still fighting? Catherine blinked. We're working on it. Good. Because Daddy's sad when you fight. And you're sad too, I can tell. Jada said it with the matter-of-fact tone children used when stating obvious truths adults tried to hide. You should just say sorry and hug and be done with it. That's what Mrs. Rodriguez makes us do. Derek started to redirect her, but Catherine laughed, a real sound that broke tension. You're absolutely right, that is what we should do. Then do it now, so I don't have to worry anymore. Catherine's eyes met Derek's. I'm sorry for trying to control everything, for not trusting us to weather this together. I'm sorry too, for assuming the worst, for not giving you credit for being complicated. They hugged there in Vincent's hospital room with an 8-year-old and a recovering heart attack patient as witnesses. Jada clapped. See, easy. Now Grandpa can get better and everyone can be happy. If only adult problems were that simple. But Jada's straightforward logic had a point. Sometimes the path forward was less complicated than fear made it seem. Thursday evening, after Jada was asleep in a recliner chair and Vincent was resting comfortably, Derek and Catherine walked the hospital corridors. Tomorrow's going to be hard, Catherine said. We'll get through it. Nathaniel's been lobbying board members all week. He's got James Bradford on his side, maybe 1 or 2 others. What about the 47 employees who signed the petition supporting the wellness programs? Catherine stopped walking. What petition? Wes told me employees have been circulating a petition asking the board to keep the programs, 47 signatures so far. Something shifted in Catherine's expression, surprise mixed with hope. I didn't know. That's the point. They're not doing it for you or for me. They're doing it because the programs actually work. Then we lead with that tomorrow, with their voices, not ours. They drove back to Richmond Thursday night, arriving at Derek's apartment around midnight. Jada crashed immediately. Derek and Catherine lay in his bed, not sleeping, just existing in the same space. No matter what happens tomorrow, Catherine said into the darkness, I want you to know something. Meeting you, loving you changed my life. Even if the board terminates your position, even if everything falls apart, this was worth it. Derek pulled her closer. It's not falling apart. We're not letting it. Friday morning, they arrived at Morrison Steel at 8:57. Both wore yesterday's clothes, running on no sleep, but they walked in together. The boardroom felt like entering a courtroom. Nathaniel sat at the far end, from Catherine's satisfaction barely contained. Other board members occupied the space between. Derek wasn't allowed in initially. He sat in his office watching through glass walls. Nathaniel opened with a tact disguised as concern. Before we begin, we need to address Ms. Aldridge and Mr. Sutton's relationship. The appearance of impropriety threatens company reputation. I'm calling for a vote to terminate the wellness position. Catherine cut through his speech. There is no conflict of interest. Derek didn't work here when our relationship began. He reports to Grace Winters, not me. And his programs are succeeding beyond projections. She pulled up data Derek had compiled. Q1 turnover down 23%. Productivity up 8%. Satisfaction scores at 5-year highs. Nathaniel's face reddened. Convenient numbers, but the real issue is appearance. You created this position specifically for him. Grace Winters stood. I've worked with Derek for 6 weeks implementing these programs. This isn't vanity project. This is structural change the company desperately needs. Yes, they're in a relationship. Yes, that's complicated, but the work is sound. Board member Helen leaned forward. I've reviewed financials. Derek's programs are cost neutral year 1 with projected 15% cost reduction by year 3 due to retention. The conference room door opened. Wes walked in, followed by 47 Morrison Steel employees. They filed into the hallway outside the boardroom, visible through glass. The chairman gestured for Wes to enter. You want to know if Derek's programs work? Ask us. Wes set a petition on the table. We're not abstract data. We're human beings who can finally breathe. You terminate his position, a lot of us will reconsider whether Morrison Steel is where we want to spend our lives. Nathaniel started to respond. Catherine spoke over him. Before this board votes, I have an announcement. The room went silent. I'm stepping down as CEO, effective in 18 months. Eruption. Voices overlapped. Catherine waited for silence. I'll transition to board chairman. Grace Winters will become CEO. I'm doing this because I've realized something fundamental. I inherited a company I never wanted, ran it because I thought I had to. She looked toward where Derek sat, but someone recently showed me that choosing your own life isn't selfish. It's necessary. Catherine turned back. Nathaniel, you're right about one thing. I did create Derek's position partly for personal reasons, because watching him break made me realize if Morrison Steel requires destroying people to succeed, it's not worth succeeding. So yes, I'm choosing Derek, because he showed me what it means to live rather than exist. The chairman called for vote. All in favor of terminating Director of Employee Wellness. 2 hands. Nathaniel and James Bradford. Opposed, 5 hands. Motion failed. Nathaniel stood. This is a mistake. You're all making a terrible mistake. He grabbed his briefcase. I resign, effective immediately. He stormed out. Derek found Catherine in her office 20 minutes later. You really stepping down? In 18 months. Time to train Grace, but yes. She crossed to him. Time to figure out who Catherine Aldridge is when she's not CEO. They stood together while Morrison Steel continued operating around them. That evening, back at Derek's apartment with Jada finally home, They made dinner together, the three of them navigating his small kitchen with the ease of people learning to be a unit. "So Catherine's going to be around more?" Jada asked, setting the table. "If that's okay with you." Jada pretended to consider this very seriously. "Will she learn to make pancakes that don't burn?" Catherine laughed. "I'll work on it." "Then yes, she can stay." 14 months collapsed into a montage that life never quite managed, but memory preserved. Derek's wellness programs expanded company-wide with measurable results. Catherine's architecture course led to more courses, led to designing a community center for a non-profit that broke ground in August. Vincent recovered, fully retired, spent Sundays teaching neighborhood kids to weld, and Jada grew into the space between Derek and Catherine. With the adaptability of children who understood, love came in many forms. By September 2027, Catherine had moved most of her belongings into Derek's apartment. The Craftsman bungalow came later, but for now they made his small space work. Jada's school supplies mixed with Catherine's architectural sketches. Derek's motorcycle magazines shared shelf space with Catherine's design books. Three people learning to be family. October brought Vermont again full circle to where they'd almost ended before really beginning. The same inn, same mountains starting to turn, but everything else different. 50 people who mattered filled a room overlooking autumn. Vincent walked Catherine down an aisle that wasn't really an aisle, just space between chairs. He moved slowly, still recovering, but his smile was genuine when he placed Catherine's hand in Derek's. Jada stood beside them as junior bridesmaid, holding a bouquet bigger than her head. Wearing a dress she'd picked herself, purple with sparkles because weddings should be fancy. Derek's vows came without notes. "You found me broken, didn't fix me, showed me I was worth fixing myself, fought beside me when walking away would have been easier. And you loved my daughter before I was brave enough to ask if you could." His eyes found Jada's. "You taught both of us that family isn't always what you're born into. Sometimes it's what you choose." Catherine's voice shook on her first words. "You showed me what I'd become, a machine optimizing for metrics that meant nothing. You saved my company by showing me it wasn't worth saving the way it was. But more, you saved me." She turned to Jada. "And you, sweetheart, taught me that love isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up imperfect and trying anyway. Thank you for letting me be part of your family." Jada beamed. Later, people would say the 9-year-old stole the show, her impromptu speech during the reception about how Daddy finally found someone who makes him smile like in the pictures with Mommy. Left no dry eyes in the room. The reception flowed into evening. Wes gave a toast about stubborn friends who finally figured out what everyone else had seen for years. Grace spoke about Catherine's transformation from CEO who never left the office to someone who'd learned that success measured in human terms mattered more than success measured in dollars. As the party wound down, Derek found Catherine on the inn's porch. She'd changed from her wedding dress into jeans and a sweater, hair loose, looking more like herself than she had all day. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Sutton?" "Terrified, exhilarated, like I just made the best decision of my life." She leaned into him. "How about you, Mr. Sutton?" "Same, though Jada keeps reminding me she's technically Mrs. Sutton too now, and wants to make sure we all understand the family hierarchy." Catherine laughed. Through the window they could see Jada teaching Vincent and Wes a complicated hand-clapping game, her energy apparently unlimited even after a full day of wedding excitement. "She's happy," Catherine observed. "She is, because you make her happy. You make both of us happy." They stood together watching their family through the window. Tomorrow they'd drive back to Richmond, back to jobs and responsibilities and the everyday work of building a life together. Grace was already excelling as CEO while Catherine consulted part-time and spent mornings designing buildings. Derek's wellness programs had been copied by 12 companies and he spent Fridays speaking at conferences. But tonight they had this, the end of one chapter, the beginning of another, the quiet satisfaction of having chosen each other, despite all the reasons not to. "Come on," Derek said, taking Catherine's hand. "Jada's going to want to hear about what happens after the wedding. She's already planning the happily ever after part. What does that look like in Jada's version? Pancakes for breakfast. Dogs were apparently getting two, and, quote, everyone being nice to each other forever and ever. That sounds achievable." They went inside together and Jada immediately launched herself at both of them, wrapping her arms around their waists in a hug that connected all three. "You're married now. Does this mean Catherine is officially my mom?" Derek and Catherine exchanged glances. They'd talked about this, had agreed to let Jada lead on titles and names. But hearing her say it so directly made it real in a new way. "Do you want me to be—" Catherine knelt to Jada's level. "Yeah, I mean, I know you're not my first mom, but you could be my second mom. Is that okay?" "That would be more than okay. That would be perfect." Jada hugged Catherine hard enough to knock her slightly off balance. "Good, because I already told Marcus at school that I was getting a new mom, and he said I was lucky because some kids don't even have one mom, and I have two if you count the first one." The logic of 9-year-olds, devastating in its clarity. That night, after guests had departed and Jada was finally asleep in their room, Derek and Catherine lay in bed listening to October wind rattle windows. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop," Catherine admitted. "For something to go wrong. For this to be too good to be real. It's real. We worked for this, fought for this, made 1,000 small choices that added up to this moment." "I know, but I spent so many years believing I couldn't have this relationship, family life outside work, that having it feels impossible." Derek pulled her closer. "Then we'll keep proving it's possible. Every day, until believing it becomes easier than doubting it." The year that followed tested that belief in small ways that accumulated into proof. Catherine's first solo architectural project, a library in a neighborhood that had never had one, opened in March. Derek was there for the ribbon cutting with Jada, watching Catherine explain her design choices to local press with the same intensity she'd once brought to quarterly earnings calls. Morrison Steel, under Grace's leadership, continued the cultural transformation Derek had started. Employee satisfaction scores kept climbing. Turnover kept dropping. The company was becoming proof that success and humanity weren't mutually exclusive. Derek's novel, revised, polished, submitted to agents, landed him a publishing deal with a small, independent press. The book wasn't a bestseller, but it found its audience, people who'd burned out, recovered, and were looking for stories that said resilience was possible. In June, Catherine discovered she was pregnant. They told Jada together over breakfast on a Saturday morning. "You're going to be a big sister." Jada's eyes went wide. Then she was out of her chair, jumping, shrieking with excitement that made Derek laugh and Catherine wince. "When? How soon? Is it a boy or girl? Can I help pick the name? Are we getting a bigger house now? Can I teach them to make pancakes? We don't know if it's a boy or girl yet. We'll find out in a few months. And yes, we're looking at bigger houses. Can I have my own room that's not also the baby's room? You'll have your own room. Then this is the best day ever." That evening, after Jada was asleep and the initial excitement had faded into quieter contemplation, Catherine sat on their couch with her hand on her stomach. "I'm scared." Derek sat beside her. "Of what?" "That I'll be terrible at this. That I'll default to work when things get hard. That I'll damage another child the way my parents damaged me. You won't. You've already proven you won't." Derek covered her hand with his. "Look at how you are with Jada. You show up, you listen, you let her be herself while guiding her to be better. That's all any parent can do. What if it's not enough? Then we'll figure it out together, like we figure out everything else." He kissed her temple. "You're not alone in this. You're not alone in anything anymore." The house hunt took 3 months. They finally found a craftsman bungalow with a 2-car garage triumph in one space, Catherine's drafting table in the other, and a sunroom where Derek set up his writing desk. 3 bedrooms, one for them, one for Jada, one for the baby. They moved in August, Jada helping by carefully transporting her most precious possessions. A box of rocks she'd collected, her favorite books, the drawing she'd made of their family, that now included Catherine and baby-to-be. September brought the start of 4th grade and Jada's increasing independence. She rode her bike to school with friends, joined the art club, started asking questions about the baby with the kind of practical concern that suggested she was already taking her big sister responsibilities seriously. Do babies cry a lot? Sometimes. Will it keep me awake? Probably. Can I help feed it? When it's old enough, yeah. What if it doesn't like me? Catherine knelt beside Jada's bed where they were having this conversation during bedtime routine. The baby is going to love you. How could they not? You're smart and funny and kind. You're going to be the best big sister. But what if I'm not good at it? Then you'll learn. Just like Daddy and I are going to learn how to be parents to a baby. None of us have done this exact thing before. We'll figure it out together. Jada seemed satisfied with this answer. She rolled over, then rolled back. Mom. It was the first time she'd called Catherine Mom without the qualifier second. Catherine's eyes filled, but her voice stayed steady. Yeah, sweetie. I'm glad Daddy found you, even if you couldn't make pancakes at first. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. October brought Derek's first book event, a reading at a local bookstore. 20 people showed up, which felt simultaneously huge and tiny. Catherine sat in the front row with Jada, both watching as Derek read from the final chapter about a man who learned that freedom wasn't about running from something, but running toward yourself. During the Q&A, someone asked, "Is the book autobiographical?" Derek considered. The details aren't, but the emotional truth is. I wrote this after burning out from a job I loved, after losing myself in other people's expectations. The protagonist's journey, learning that you can't pour from an empty cup, that choosing yourself isn't selfish, that's mine. After the event, walking to their car, Jada held both their hands. Daddy, your book is really good. You read it. Some of it. The parts that weren't too grown up. She swung their joined hands. I liked the part where the man finds his daughter at the end. That was my favorite. Derek had changed the ending after Jada came into his life. The protagonist didn't end up alone on the road. He ended up building a life that had room for both freedom and connection. That's my favorite part too, baby girl. January brought the baby a girl they named Sarah after Derek's late wife. Jada had suggested it during one of their family discussions about names. I think we should name her after First Mom, so she's part of our family too. Catherine had looked at Derek with a question in her eyes. He'd nodded, throat too tight to speak. Little Sarah arrived on a Tuesday afternoon after 12 hours of labor that Derek coached Catherine through while Jada waited with Vincent and Wes. When they finally brought the baby to meet her, Jada approached with the reverence usually reserved for something precious and breakable. She's so small. You were this small once, Derek said. Can I hold her? Catherine carefully transferred baby Sarah to Jada's arms, supporting her head. Jada stared at her baby sister with an expression of wonder. Hi, Sarah. I'm your big sister, Jada. I'm going to teach you everything, like how to make pancakes and ride a bike and how to tell when Daddy's pretending he's not tired. She looked up. She's perfect. She is, Catherine agreed. And so are you. The weeks that followed were a blur of diapers and feedings and sleep deprivation. Derek and Catherine took turns with night shifts. Jada helped in small ways, bringing diapers, entertaining the baby with faces, singing off-key lullabies she made up. One night around 3 a.m., Derek found Catherine in the nursery feeding Sarah. She looked exhausted but content. How are you doing? I'm terrified I'm doing everything wrong, but also, she looked down at the baby. Also, this feels right in a way nothing else ever has. Derek sat beside them. You're doing great. We both are. I keep thinking about my parents, how they prioritized work over everything, how I grew up feeling like an obligation rather than a joy. Her voice caught. I don't want that for our girls. It won't be. We won't let it be. Derek put his arm around her. We made different choices. We're making different choices every day. Like 3 a.m. feedings instead of 3 a.m. conference calls. Exactly like that. Baby Sarah finished eating and Catherine handed her to Derek for burping. He settled her against his shoulder, patting gently, and felt the weight of this tiny person who depended on them completely. "Thank you," Catherine said quietly. "For what? For showing me this was possible, for not letting me walk away when I got scared, for building this with me. Thank you for taking the risk, for choosing us even when it was hard." They sat together in the nursery while Richmond slept and their daughters grew, and the life they'd built proved itself real, one ordinary moment at a time. By March, they'd found a rhythm. Catherine had transitioned fully to board chairman, working from home 3 days a week. Derek continued his wellness work at Morrison Steele while writing his second novel. Jada thrived in 4th grade, bringing home artwork and stories about friends and asking increasingly complex questions about how the world worked. One Saturday morning, the first truly warm day of spring, they all went to the park. Jada pushed Sarah in the baby swing while Derek and Catherine watched from a bench. "She's so good with her," Catherine observed. "She's had good examples." Catherine leaned her head on Derek's shoulder. "Do you ever think about where we'd be if you hadn't quit?" "Sometimes. Usually when I can't sleep. I think about the alternate timeline where I stayed burned out completely, maybe ended up in the hospital. Where I never told you how I felt because the fear was too big. I think about that too. The timeline where I let you walk away, where I convinced myself it was for the best, where I spent the rest of my life running a company and wondering what if." Derek turned to look at her. "But we didn't do that. We took the scary path, and look where it led." Around them, spring was insisting itself into existence. Trees budding, flowers pushing through cold ground, children laughing. Their children because Jada was theirs now in every way that mattered, and Sarah would grow up knowing both her parents had chosen this life deliberately. "Hey!" Jada called from the swings. "Come push us. Sarah likes it when you go higher." They crossed to the swings. Derek pushed Sarah gently while Catherine pushed Jada higher. Both girls laughing with joy that was uncomplicated and pure. Later, walking home with Sarah in a stroller and Jada between them, they passed Morrison Steele's main building. Derek looked up at the 3rd-floor window where his office was, where he spent his days trying to make the company more human. "Do you miss it?" Derek asked Catherine. "Being CEO?" She considered. "Sometimes. I miss the adrenaline, the sense that I was building something. But then I go home to our girls and I realize I am still building something, just different, more important. No regrets. Not a single one." They continued walking. Jada chattered about her plans for summer swimming lessons, art camp, teaching Sarah to recognize colors. Derek and Catherine listened, contributing occasionally, mostly just existing in this moment that was ordinary and perfect precisely because of its ordinariness. That evening, after both girls were asleep, Derek and Catherine sat in their sunroom. He worked on his novel. She sketched designs for a new project, a school in an underserved neighborhood. Their desks sat side by side, close enough to touch, but separate enough for individual focus. "I finished the chapter," Derek announced around 9. "How does it end?" "The protagonist realizes that freedom isn't about being alone. It's about having the space to be yourself with people who see you clearly." Catherine set down her pencil. "That's beautiful." "It's true, you taught me that. We taught each other." She stood stretched across to where he sat. "Come on, let's go to bed. Tomorrow's Sunday, pancakes with Jada, the farmer's market, ordinary life." "Ordinary life is pretty extraordinary, though." "It is, it really is." They climbed the stairs to their bedroom, passing Jada's room where she slept with her mouth open, covers kicked off. Derek pulled them back over her. Then the nursery where Sarah slept on her back, tiny fists curled beside her head. Catherine adjusted the blanket, lingering for a moment. In their own room, they got ready for bed with the practiced efficiency of people who'd learned each other's rhythms. Derek set his alarm for 7 Sunday morning, with kids meant early wake-ups. Catherine plugged in her phone, set out clothes for tomorrow. They lay in bed in comfortable silence. Outside Richmond settled into Saturday night. Inside their home held the accumulated evidence of lives being lived. Jada's art on the fridge, Sarah's toys in the living room. Derek's books on shelves, Catherine's architectural models in the sunroom. Derek: "Yeah, I love our life." "Me too. Even the hard parts, even the 3 a.m. feedings and the fights about control issues and the board meetings that tried to tear us apart. All of it led here." Derek pulled her close. "You know what I think about sometimes?" "What?" "That rain-soaked night when you showed up at my door, how terrified you were, how close I came to not letting you in. I'm glad you did." "Me too. Best decision I ever made." They drifted toward sleep. Tomorrow would bring all the ordinary chaos of a Sunday, with 2 kids' breakfast fights over who got which plate, Sarah crying for a diaper change during cartoons, Jada's endless energy, the grocery shopping and meal prep and everything else that filled their days. But right now, in this moment, Derek and Catherine lay together in a house they'd chosen, in a life they'd built, surrounded by a family they'd created through choice and courage and the willingness to try even when trying felt impossible. Through the baby monitor, Sarah made small sleep sounds. Down the hall, Jada mumbled something about purple dragons. Outside, the world continued spinning through crisis and beauty and the 10,000 small choices that added up to lives worth living. Inside, Derek Sutton and Catherine Aldridge Sutton slept peacefully, knowing that what they'd built wasn't perfect. But it was real. It was earned. It was theirs. And they'd built it not because they'd compromised, but because they'd refused to. 3 years later, Derek stood in Morrison Steele's main auditorium watching 500 employees file in for the company's annual meeting. Catherine sat in the front row with 9-year-old Sarah on her lap and 12-year-old Jada beside her. Vincent and Wes occupied seats nearby. Grace took the podium as CEO, but she'd asked Derek to speak about the wellness program's 5-year impact. He stood, walked to the microphone, and looked out at faces he'd come to know not as data points, but as people with lives and families and dreams beyond work. 5 years ago, I quit this company because it was killing me. Not metaphorically, literally. I was working myself to death, chasing metrics that measured everything except what mattered. The room was silent. Today, Morrison Steele is proof that success and humanity aren't mutually exclusive, that treating people well isn't weakness, it's the strongest competitive advantage any company can have. Our turnover is down 43%. Productivity is up 18%. But more importantly, people want to work here. Parents make their kids' school events. People take vacations. Life happens outside these walls. He paused, finding Catherine's eyes. She smiled, encouraging. I used to think freedom meant being alone. No obligations, no ties. Just me and a motorcycle and an open road. But real freedom, the kind that lasts, is having the space to be fully yourself with people who see you clearly and choose you anyway. It's building a life that has room for work and family and dreams and rest. It's refusing to accept that sacrifice is the price of success. He looked at Jada and Sarah. My daughters will grow up in a world where I'm present, where work is part of life, not all of it, where they see their parents choosing them every single day. That's my real legacy. Not programs or policies, but the example that it's possible to succeed without destruction. The applause started slow, then built. Derek returned to his seat. Jada leaned over to whisper, Good speech, Dad, but you said actually like 6 times. Everyone laughed, even Derek. After the meeting, walking to their car, Sarah tugged Catherine's hand. Mommy, is Daddy famous now? No, sweetie. He just did something important. What's the difference? Catherine crouched to Sarah's level. Famous is when lots of people know your name. Important is when you make people's lives better. Your daddy chose important. Sarah considered this with 5-year-old seriousness. I want to be important too. You already are, baby. To us, you're the most important person in the world. They drove home through Richmond streets, sun setting behind them, radio playing something Jada immediately started singing along to. Derek glanced in the rearview mirror at his family, Jada teaching Sarah a clapping game, Catherine looking out the window with that expression she got when she was designing something in her head. This was the life he'd almost lost by staying. This was the life he'd gained by leaving. This was the life he'd fought for by refusing to accept that wanting everything meant getting nothing. At home, Jada helped Sarah with bath time while Derek and Catherine made dinner together. Their kitchen dance had become practiced. He chopped vegetables while she stirred the pot, both moving around each other with ease born from repetition. "Vincent called earlier," Catherine mentioned. "Wants to know if we're coming for Sunday dinner." "What did you tell him?" "That we'd be there, and that yes, he can teach Sarah the basics of welding despite my entirely reasonable concerns about power tools and 5-year-olds. Derek laughed. "She'll be wearing safety goggles and a full suit of armor if you have your way. Mock me all you want. Our daughter is not losing fingers to your family's insistence on teaching metalworking to kindergartners." The teasing continued through dinner, through bedtime routines, through the quiet evening hours when both girls were finally asleep and Derek and Catherine could sit together on their couch with books they wouldn't read and simply exist in the same space. "How did we get here?" Catherine asked suddenly. "Here where? Here. This life. This family. This—" She gestured around their living room, indicating everything it represented. "5 years ago, I was alone in a mansion that felt like a museum, working 20-hour days, convinced that was what success looked like. And now I have a house that's too small and too loud and filled with plastic toys and crayon drawings. I work part-time. I spend my mornings designing buildings that may never be built. I have a husband and 2 daughters and a life that doesn't fit any definition of success I was taught to value." She looked at him. "And I've never been happier." Derek set down his book, pulled her close. "You know what the crazy part is? What? We almost didn't do this. We almost let fear win, almost let all the reasonable objections stop us from trying. But we didn't. No. We took the unreasonable path, the one everyone said wouldn't work, the one that required choosing each other over and over despite all the logical reasons not to." Catherine tilted her face up to kiss him. "Best decision we ever made. Second best. First was quitting. Had to do that before anything else was possible." "Fair point." They sat together while the house settled around them, creaking floors, humming refrigerator, the white noise machine in Sarah's room. Outside, Richmond moved through another Monday night. Inside, 2 people who'd almost missed each other held on to what they'd built. Not because it was easy, not because it made sense on paper, not because anyone else understood it, but because they'd learned something fundamental, that the best lives aren't the ones that look impressive from outside. They're the ones that feel real from inside, the ones built on choices that honor what you actually want instead of what you're supposed to want. Derek Sutton and Catherine Aldridge Sutton had built that kind of life. Not perfect, not impressive by traditional measures, but real and earned and worth every hard choice that had made it possible. They'd built it not because they'd compromised who they were, but because they'd refused to. And that refusing to compromise yourself into someone unrecognizable for the sake of success that didn't sustain you, that was the real freedom all along.